And welcome to the Daily Space Weather Show. Are we seeing a Terminator event in the middle of a solar cycle? I think we might be. We'll cover it and lots more here at the Smash News Network, least busted name. In news today, we're going to show extensive footage from the GOES-R. We've also got SDO imagery for you, don't worry, but there's the GOES SUVI 195 angstroms. And it's a fantastic wavelength that we don't show that often, so let's take a quick tour of the antics of the closest star. And thanks for stargazing with us, by the way. So we do have several solar features rising in the northeast: filaments, coronal holes, and an active region. There you can see a huge filament hanging out by the Earth scale. And south of that, we do have a coronal hole as well as a new active region rising. I think that one might have just formed. I wasn't seeing it on the seismology images. Helioseismology images, that's what they are. And here's a zoom out to the equatorial view. One new sunspot has formed down here in the southeastern quadrant, right there is that new sunspot. And we'll show you more detailed imagery of that a little bit later in the video as well. Some decent plasma filaments there rising over the southeastern limb also. And there is the southern polar area. So most of these sunspots have stayed stable. There was some modest growth on the group in the northern hemisphere. And is it a Terminator event in the middle of a solar cycle? Could be. By the way, thanks to our new subscribers over on YouTube. Congratulations on I'll congratulate myself on being able to speak the English language. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. Don't forget to press the like button. Press all of the things. Comment, share. If you're new to the channel, do yourself a favor and press subscribe and obtain the world's most comprehensive daily space weather content right into your YouTube subscription feed. Of course, you could sign up for email alerts. We've gotten countless requests for notifications, as notifications regularly don't work on the platform. So you could sign up for email alerts over at smashomash.com/smashteam. Even the bronze level, which pays exactly $0 per month, gets email alerts. You want to support the channel? Join at the silver level or the gold level and obtain additional content, some of which has nothing to do with space weather. Once again, thanks to our new YouTube subscribers. Don't forget to press the like button. The video cannot continue until the like button is pressed. So please do press like, because again, we can't continue until you do. So no, that's okay. I'll wait. We don't have to continue the video. I could sit here all day and make this video 23 hours long, and because you haven't pressed like yet, what are you waiting for? You've got to. You can find links in the description, but press like. Smash staff, have they pressed like? She's lying for you. Every day she lies. Give Smash staff a raise and press the like button. Give yourself a raise in information by becoming a member of the Smash Team. Smashomash.com/Smash Team launched back in October of 2021. You click posts, you get additional content. You don't, you don't. You miss the videos, that's on you. We send out email alerts. So we create solutions. It's on you to utilize the solutions, especially if you're not getting notifications or seeing the content in your subscription feed. Today's featured product is what I'm drinking right now, and it is delicious. The Cameron's Scandinavian Organic Whole Bean. Oh, yes. What better way to start out your morning than with some organic coffee? Yeah, we switched to organic coffee and stopped getting the jitters. You can find it on our Amazon shop, amazon.com/shop/smashomash. Also linked below the video. By the way, these are paid endorsements. The Smash Team is a paid endorsement. We endorse our own websites, our own subscription service and paywall. We endorse the products that are listed at the Amazon shop. And we are paid a tiny, tiny commission on those products. So visit the Amazon storefront. Lots of stuff besides coffee available there. Yesterday we talked about spices. You can find supplements. You can find office supplies. You can find battery backups, camping supplies, and even spaceware. Do you have Eclipse glasses yet? Hit up the Amazon shop. And if you're in the market for things like CBDs, mushroom gummies, stress and immune stacks, body balms, etc., hit up the Hemp Lucid shop. So there are the CBD tinctures. There are the mushroom gummies. There are more mushroom gummies. There are the stress, sleep, and immune stacks. Save $15 on any individual product there, or even more on the full stack pack. Links below the video to the Hemp Lucid shop, Amazon shop, Smash Team, smashomash.com, etc. Help increase the probability these videos will continue to exist, remain publicly visible, and free for all to view, the way our paid endorsements have. Here's another one, the Smasho merch shop, also linked below the video. The Redbubble shop features 37 different products at the moment, 37 different designs on dozens and dozens of different products, and we encourage you to do the math and not suck at it. Here's the equation. 8 == capital D. Yes, you can use that in your online interactions. Yeah, do the math and don't suck at it. Show your work. 8 == capital D. Yeah, that's some advanced math right there. It features an ultra-high resolution image of the sun, an SDO image in 171 angstroms. And last but not least, smashomash.com is where to find the links, as well as below this video. I think I might have said that. Have you pressed like yet? All of you slackers who haven't pressed like, we will find you and we will shame you. Before your soul is cast into an ever-deepening and darkening abyss of doom, destruction, and rabbit poop, press the like button, lest thy soul be consumed by corporate oligarchs? I don't know. Smashomash.com, and welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. Also, don't forget to view our live stream today. We'll be streaming with Eugene the Philosopher. If you haven't subscribed to Eugene the Philosopher, go do that. But in the meantime, check our community posts. You can find the link there. 3 o'clock today, Eugene will be hosting. We'll be talking about whatever we want, and you might even be able to lead the conversation. 3 p.m. Eastern Time, a live interactive conversation with the monotone from Minsk, Eugene Bagashov. So, like I said, one new sunspot did form. This one down here, right there, rapidly, just in the past hour or two. A new pore opening up there. Besides that, most of these groups are stable. This one here is largely evaporated. This one's stayed largely stable. This one grew a little bit, and some umbral migration happened, and this one grew a little bit. So it looks like a minor uptick in the sunspot number right before these sunspots set. There's colorized magnetogram from the SDO. It's depicting October 21st and October 22nd to date. Looks like we've seen a volcanic downtick. These are the erupting volcanoes. Ibu producing a 7,000-foot ash plume. Dacono, an 8,000-foot ash plume. Popocatépetl, 22,000 foot ash plume, flight level 220, flight level 170 over Guatemala from Fuego as it explodes, and Revenador, flight level 140, 14,000 foot ash plume from Revenador, located in Ecuador. Earthquakes have been pretty mild as well. No major quakes over the past 24 hours. There are the past 90 days, and there is the 24-hour USGS list. So quite a few quakes there in Alaska, actually. We'll cite quakes of a 5 or greater magnitude. So a big lull in 5 magnitude earthquakes. We're actually way overdue for a 6 magnitude earthquake, by the way. Keep in mind, any earthquake can be a foreshock. I think the largest of the past 24 was a couple of 5.2s. This one right at the India-Nepal border region there, where the Asian continent meets the subcontinent of India, the Indo-Australian continent. That 5.2 was at 1:54 this morning, and then about 3 hours later, a 5.2 right in the middle of the Indian Ocean there at the Antarctican African Indian plate boundary, the tri-junction there, the triple junction right in the middle of the Indian Ocean. That 5.2 was at 4:45 Universal Time this morning, and those are the 5 magnitude quakes. And this is the view from SDO. So there's 171 angstroms. That's once again October 21st and October 22nd to date. There was at least one significant coronal mass ejection, which we will cover here. And once again, let me bring this up. Is there a Terminator event going on right over here? Well, I don't see any valid physics to suggest why it couldn't happen in the middle of a solar cycle, and it looks like it's happening right now. So, some more stats here. The 10.7 centimeter radio flux is now all the way down to 123 solar flux units. If you're wondering where it is at solar minimum, it's at like below 70 solar flux units. And if you're wondering where it comes from right around here, the lower corona and the transition region known as the chromosphere, just above the solar surface. And here's the one-year graph to contextualize the radio flux. Lowest levels here since, let's see, lowest levels of radio flux since around February of, that's December of 2022. So lowest levels of radio flux here in about 10 months. As we see a big lull in solar activity here before ramping up to proper solar maximum. So here is the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. NOAA's not forecasting any geomagnetic storms or geomagnetic unrest. We are expecting a CME impact sometime later in the day on Tuesday, October 24th. So we might see some aurora that night. It'll be a minor impact. We aren't expecting the KP index to get above 5. It'll more likely not get much above 4, if anything. It'll be a minor impact at best. So that's NOAA's forecast, the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. And here are the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space modeled by the Space Weather Modeling Framework. Solar wind remaining quite slow here. This depicts magnetohydrodynamic pressure for the past 4 hours, and you can see most of the pressure there on the dark side of the planet as it slowly starts to reach static equilibrium. Next, Earth magnetic moment from the ground. Pretty calm conditions here. There were some more aurora that were captured this past evening. We did share a couple of those on our Twitter account, x.com/smashamash. Again, there are the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground level magnetic flux density. KP index currently at 2.33. So again, geomagnetically calm conditions here on your Sunday morning. And here's what's going on with the solar wind. Very slow and pretty diffuse there as measured by the ACE. Less than 5 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density, solar wind velocity here. Just over 300 kilometers per second at 317. As far as the Discover, pretty consistent. Little higher density there at 6.4 protons per cubic centimeter, 322 kilometers per second for the solar wind speed. So quite slow and not very dense. The GOES magnetometers. Just in a normal operating range there, no major changes happening. Again, the Earth system is moving into a state of static equilibrium here in the past couple of hours with those weak solar wind inputs. Next, our gong imagery. And we are expecting the North Pole current sheet to be here by tomorrow's daily space weather video. So here's the North Pole current sheet. Here's a sector boundary crossing. Here's a South Pole current sheet. And that new sunspot that's formed in the southeastern quadrant will allow that North Pole current sheet to come through, we are expecting, in the next 24 hours. If it's not here by tomorrow's daily space weather video, it'll be close. Oh, and quick consumer tip. Tomorrow's daily space weather video is coming out at like 6:30 or 7 p.m. We're trying to figure out a consistent time. We're sort of expecting it to be at 7 o'clock. So 7 p.m. the space weather is moving to an evening show instead of a morning one. So cheers. So that's our top view ecliptic plane field plot. It's got massive predictive value if you know how to read it. Here's our line of sight field plot. And again, we've got really equivalent magnetic fields over there in the eastern quadrant. So this looks like a miniature termination event, which we're going to cover here in a minute. There's magnetic pressure building up right now, and the sun has been withholding plasma, but it won't keep doing that. It's going to create some fireworks quite soon. So here's our latest. We've actually recently added this. This is our line of sight ecliptic plane field plot, and I like it because now it's depicting 4 days. Here we can scroll down just enough to show the dates. So you can see that current sheet moving back and forth there. That is some magnetic indecision around the eastern portion. That is an indication that the northern and southern tropical regions, let's call them, the regions near the solar equator are at a very similar magnetic flux density. So this is an indication that pretty soon you're not going to see that same equivalent magnetic flux density at the north and south, and you'll start to see sunspots form rapidly in that portion of the solar disk. So it's moving right into the Earth-facing zone here. So that is like a fuse that's been lit right there. The possible termination event, a mini terminator event there in the middle of the solar cycle. If you're not familiar with it, you can read this article from spaceweatherarchive.com, the termination event. And again, this is caused by the north and south polar fields around the equatorial region. When they're very equivalent, the sun has trouble producing sunspots. There is not enough magnetic irregularity. That's what the terminator event is. Here's a great visualization of it. This was discovered sort of accidentally by Scott McIntosh and Steve Lehman. When those fields are extremely equivalent, they cancel each other out instead of creating enough irregularity to create the chaos that we see during a sunspot. In other words, the plasma is just being held in place. and not allowing sunspots to form and expose the photosphere. So if you want to read about that, again, that's on spaceweatherarchive.com. Just type in the termination event in your favorite search engine, and you'll be able to see that. And let's move on to coronal holes. Coronal holes, super important for the solar cycle. They show us the solar polar field reversal process. And again, you can see this indecision over here in the eastern quadrant. So you see that North Pole coronal hole rapidly migrating to the south, and a coronal hole of the South Pole orientation just forming right there spontaneously. That is an indication of extremely equivalent north and south magnetic fields in that equatorial region in the eastern quadrant. So that's our line of sight coronal hole plot. Let's take a look at coronal holes from SDO's perspective. Bring up the last image. So these are south, and all the rest are north. So this one rising right here is north, these are north, and these down here are also North Pole oriented coronal holes. This one right here, we can expect an enhanced solar wind in about 4 or 5 days from that. So a couple minor space weather events are on the way. A CME impact Tuesday night, as well as a coronal hole high-speed stream sometime around Wednesday. Expect a density increase late in the day Wednesday from this coronal hole. Next, moving to sunspots, which are now dropping back down to about 50. This should come back up a little bit today. Keep in mind there are some sunspots about to set in the western portion as well. So if no new sunspots form, we'll see this come up and then come back down again in 2 days. But tomorrow we are expecting this to be a little bit higher than this, maybe getting back around 75 or so, depending on what that new sunspot in the southeast does. So next, our flare monitor and solar flare scoreboard. Brought to you by the Integrated Space Weather Analysis Center and the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. So, yeah, it's 3471 will be this sunspot down here. 3471 has just formed in the past couple of hours. It's looking pretty solid. So far, only alpha class, I think. We'll show you a high-res image of that before we get to our meteorology segment today. And let's view sunspots from the SDO. Actually, this is the GOES-R and the SDO. We put the GOES-R 131 angstroms along with the SDO continuum there to highlight the active regions. And again, you'll see this sunspot rapidly form down here in the southeast. That's a 24-hour video, by the way, and here we've subtracted the GOES-R 131 angstroms. So this sunspot grew a little bit. This one grew a little bit. This one's largely stable. These groups here look like they've degraded a bit. So mostly stable there. Possible new active region or sunspot rising up here in the northeast, along with some other features like filaments and coronal holes. Next, energetic particles and flares. We ain't got no spikes in the proton flux. It's been weeks since we've seen a legitimate SEP, solar energetic particle event. And the likelihood isn't that high because these sunspots aren't that magnetically complex. X-ray flux here now back down to about a B5 level, B4.4 level. Barely a C-class intensification in the past 24 hours, only one, a C1.5. Very low levels of flaring. Shall not continue. This lull in solar activity, too, shall pass. Now we're showing the GOES SUVI 131 plus 94 angstroms. And it looks like that C-class intensification came from back here, another setting zone behind the western limb. So getting a great demonstration in the past few days about how we can see solar flares from sunspots that aren't even visible. And we can see coronal mass ejections without any major sunspots or without any major flares. They're all separate phenomenon, folks. Don't confuse coronal mass ejections with solar flares. They're completely different. Solar flares are photons. Coronal mass ejections are protons. Protons. Imagine sitting in front of a fan and having a wind blowing on your face. Those are protons. Imagine having a flashlight that shoots out X-rays. Those are photons. Know the difference, or else. So this is what's going on overhead Lehigh Valley, PA. If you want to make your own star chart, try skyandtelescope.org. Skyandtelescope.org, folks. We've got Mercury there just behind the sun, Jupiter setting in the west, and also the third brightest object, my favorite non-Earth planet, Venus. And next, a solar system forecast. Would you like to know where the planets are going to be in 7 days? Well, we show you daily on the channel. I guess it's part of space weather, although these planets aren't really affecting space weather. They're not in control of the sun. Stop telling me about the barycenter and Jupiter and Saturn are in charge of solar cycles. It's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. If they were in charge of solar cycles, then why is there a consistent 11-year solar cycle dating back clearly 1,000+ years, possibly as far as 700 million years? The Jupiter-Saturn cycle's nothing like 11 years, so just dispel that nonsense immediately. I don't even have to look up stats to be able to easily cite this. Anyway, here's your solar system forecast. That's where things will be on the 29th. Full moon will be on the 29th. And it should make for a great Halloween, as we'll have a bright moon up there in the sky. A gibbous waning moon by All Hallows Eve. Next, our astronomy photo of the day. And look, folks, it's a ghost. It's a spooky, spooky ghost up there in the sky over Yukon, Canada. This early morning image depicting a witch, or perhaps a spooky, spooky auroral ghost. That's the apod.nasa.gov image. Copyright 2013 by Yuichi Takasaka. That's a pretty good name. And let's move on to coronagraphs. So first we'll show LASCO C2 and C3. And again, there was at least one CME that came out of the southwest. We've got the C2 a few hours ahead of the C3 here. So you should look at the left side first, and then when you see something happen, look at the right side, and that's why we've put the delay between the two feeds there. There's a CME out of the northwest. There's a CME out of the west. And the southwest. Are they earthly directed, you ask? Well, we'll tell you here in a minute. First, the views from Stereo A, located right there where the red circle is. And there are Stereo A's coronagraphs. Here we have the raw imagery on the left, slightly ahead of the difference imagery on the right. So there are some CMEs there coming out of the southwest, the west, and even the northwest. And we'll have to rock that one back here in a minute. Pretty dense shell there. A dense core, actually. Coming out of the northwest. Great image there. From the Stereo Ahead spacecraft, which is getting further and further ahead of Earth, orbitally speaking. Here come our custom coronagraphs. These are 24-hour videos with the GOES R 304 angstroms in the center, SOHO LASCO C3 in blue, SOHO LASCO C2 in red. Again, if you're wondering if those are earthly directed, well, the answer is no. You won't see any plasma motions. You won't see any limb darkening on the Earth side of the solar disk. Those are behind the western limb. So not earthly directed. Mercury there making its way out of the Soho-Lasco C2. And here's one step closer. Again, no plasma motions there on the Earth side of the disk, indicating that those CMEs are on the far side. And there's the full disk view from the GOES-R 304 angstroms wavelength. So some significant plasma filaments here on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk remain intact. Let's take a look at those next. That is the Udaipur, India ground-based solar observatory. And since nobody named this filament, I just named it this morning, it's now known as the Mark Zuckerberg filament. So, geez, just imagine if that filament ejects and destroys civilization. Imagine if civilization was destroyed by the Mark Zuckerberg plasma filament. How would you like that? So some major filaments here. The Eric Weinstein filament is just setting over here. That's that one. Yeah. I don't know. If you want to name filaments, do it over on Twitter. x.com/Smashomash, the brilliant rebranding. Oh, slow clap. Way to brand something after a letter. Oh, such genius. So yeah, that filament is now named the Mark Zuckerberg solar filament. And that's where to name filaments after living people. If you don't believe Zuckerberg is a person, make sure you leave us a comment. Anyway, here's the grayscale imagery, which is zoomed out slightly to show filaments, or prominences, I should say, and some big prominences here around the eastern limb, both in the north and south. So those might be suggesting there are some more active regions there about to rise. There's certainly an active region rising in the northeast. So far, we don't see any sunspots, though. So at least when I did show prep, no sunspots were visible up there. And let's get the bonus features. But first, the past couple of hours from the GOES 16 SUVI. Oh, and by the way, here's a forecast. Within the next 12 hours, there's going to be a CME from the northeast. So you will see a coronal mass ejection. It'll be depicted on tomorrow night's daily space weather video. CME coming. It will not likely be earthly directed. Bonus features. You've arrived at the bonus features segment. First thing we're looking at is satellite charging hazards. Some minor charging hazards there over the eastern Pacific. Yeah, low energy electrons are building up on spacecraft out there. Again, those charging hazards are minor. Here's the electron flux over the past 3 days, and it's been a little bit lower than expected, I think. That's the GOES 16 and GOES 18's radiographic measurements from their geosynchronous near equatorial orbits. There's the 1-year graph, and an extended period here of low electron flux. Maybe does that spook you? Does that make you want to head to the bunker? Oh my God, look at how low the electron flux is. Oh no, it must be a grand solar minimum. Pardon my sarcasm. And it looks like NOAA's expecting a continued extremely low level of electron flux. I mean, I would say it's going to come up here for tomorrow and then drop back down. So, I don't know. I largely agree with that forecast because of the CME impact, which NOAA is not forecasting. So, I don't know. Expect a dip in the electron flux by Tuesday night with another coronal mass ejection impact. It'll be minor, though. but the electron flux dip will be significant. Anyway, the electron flux is measured at the F layer. The F layer of the ionosphere, located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. And by the way, folks, if you think HAARP affects the weather, you should probably look at this image right here. You see, your weather all occurs down here in this thin blue band known as the troposphere. That's where all of your weather occurs. HAARP affects the D layer of the ionosphere, way up here at like 80 to 100 kilometers of altitude. That has nothing to do with your weather. If you think there are clouds that are being formed by HAARP, you do not understand atmospheric physics, and you should probably take physics too to understand electromagnetic radiation as well. Anyway, here's the F layer of the ionosphere, courtesy of Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. HAARP is not weather modification. HAARP affects the ionosphere, and zero weather happens in the ionosphere. So we are seeing continued low-frequency anomalies in the ionosphere. As the most recent geomagnetic storm conditions have not completely subsided at the ionosphere level, there is still some scintillation caused by solar plasma, which is still making its way down. So if that imagery is Greek to you, don't worry. We've got the anomalygram. That's anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. And you'll see quite a bit of red on here. That is a scintillated, puffed-up ionosphere. So this will subside in the coming 24 to 36 hours. And like I said, in a little over 48 hours, another CME impact. A minor one. Here comes the latest image. That is 11:45 universal time for the raw vibrational frequency and 11:45 universal time anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. We also show the WAM, the whole atmosphere model, which shows total electron content. That's all the free electrons to the outer portion of the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt down to ground level. And of course the maximum usable frequency. It should be useful for GPS and radio users. The WAM, the whole atmosphere model. That's the nowcast, by the way, not a forecast. Here's total electron content by itself. Feel free to pause the video on this frame if you're not familiar with those distances in miles. And there are the free electrons from your GPS satellite down to ground level. I still say this looks erroneously. We'll only let that play through one time because of that. However, the electron content anomaly over North America looks like it is legit data. So we'll show that. And no major high electron content anomalies. Just some minor ones over places like Mexico and the Eastern Pacific. We'll close out space weather with our latest high-res images. Starting out with this new little sunspot group in the southeast. By the way, you see how far away from the equator that is? Yeah. That's a thing that you don't see around solar minimum. Around solar minimum, you only see sunspots around the equator. So that sunspot group is small. It's only alpha class here at the moment. It looks like there may be some North Pole-oriented umbra forming in the trailing region there. If that happens, it'll become beta class. At the moment, not. Next, let's see. This sunspot group we'll do next. That is beta gamma class, as it does not have a north-south line separating the magnetic fields. See? So that's a beta gamma class sunspot group. And this this group here. Also beta gamma class. And this group. Also beta gamma class. So likelihood of large solar flares not really very high at the moment. Likelihood of rapid sunspot growth on the eastern limb of the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk is quite high, as it looks like those magnetic fields are starting to resolve themselves, and their irregularity should lead to the growth of sunspots. It's a mini Terminator event mixed in the middle of a solar cycle. Next, looking at this rapid intensification of this hurricane, why did it de-intensify so quickly? So when it was over this area right here, it experienced high pressure winds up in the upper levels. There was an upper level high moving over the top of it. That pressed it down, and then it went over this desert, Baja California, where it had no convective capabilities. So its convection was reduced by this upper level high, and then its convection was completely cut off by Baja California, and now its convection has been reestablished because this water is 87 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's starting to rotate again, but it's not going to last very long because it's going to smash into the Mexican continent, and when it does that, its convection will be cut off for good, and the winds will die down almost instantly, within a few hours. So, but at the moment, you've got like probably about 50 mile per hour winds there in the Gulf of California. That is a bunch of hot water. Convection has resumed, but not for long, because when the low moves over land, it's done. It's toast. It's going to be kaplastered. And let's move on to show some rainfall forecasts. So check it out. There's the Euro model expecting over a foot of rain in large portions of Mexico. The GFS model showing a lot lower rain totals there. So a big disagreement for the next 3 days based on the GFS model shown here and the Euro model shown here. 14 plus inches there on the Euro model and only 5 inches on the GFS. Keep in mind the GFS model is still showing nearly a foot of rain there around the coast. Next, clouds and fog. We show it daily as we zoom in closer and closer to the lower 48, bringing your space weather all the way down to your Earth weather. So that's clouds and fog. It's still dark over more than half of this map, so we use the shortwave radiation map on the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite to show clouds and fog. There you have it. And here is that hurricane, and you can see it rapidly intensifying there as it moves over that 87-degree water, although it is doomed to smash into a dry continent where convection will go from really high to nothing. So that thing's only got about 4 or 5 more hours to maintain those winds, and they will drop very rapidly along with a bunch of rain. So that's what's going on. That's why that hurricane did what it did. Shout out to Michael DeWitt of Alberta, Canada. Next, the weather.gov map. So there is our National Weather Service map. We'll scroll down and show you the key and then say, hey, head to weather.gov if your location is lit up. Look at the frigid temperatures coming to the eastern U.S. A bunch of hard freeze, frost advisories, etc. And here comes some forecasts, starting with the GFS, 72-hour pressure and precipitation forecast. So snow will start to come from Canada into first Montana and then into the Pacific Northwest. That hurricane will be kaplastered by making landfall. It's going to turn to the east and then back to the north. So that's a 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast. Here is the GFS 72-hour total accumulated precipitation forecast. And I gotta say, that looks more like 14 inches. So I don't know, it looks like a disparity there between Witty.com's GFS forecast and TropicalTidbit.com forecast. I don't know. Certainly looks like it's showing over a foot of rain there on portions of Mexico. And since some of that precipitation at the tail end is expected to be snowfall, there you go. There's your 72-hour GFS accumulated positive snow depth change forecast. So some snow coming to Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and New York. But the heaviest snow there coming to northern Montana. And that event is expected to continue there. So that system is going to keep moving to the south, and there are certainly cold temperatures there. We are expecting a lot more snow in the U.S. in the coming days. Pre-November here. 72-hour accumulated snow depth change forecast. Here's the GFS jet stream model. And you can see cold air here being injected way down across the U.S., slowly making its way east, paving the way for snow that sticks to the ground. So those ain't going to be flurries, folks. There's going to be snow accumulation coming, starting with Montana. Last but not least, our temperature anomaly forecast. And some very warm temperatures coming to the center of the country, the Mississippi Valley, the Great Lakes region. Something like 16 degrees Celsius above normal. That's the GFS 72-hour temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. Next, your lightning mapper. There's where the lightning's been striking over the past about 10 hours, mostly around places like South America and Central America, also the Caribbean and the West Atlantic. Here's the real-time lightning map from lightningmaps.org. Lightningmaps.org, highly recommend it when you hear thunder. Check it out. The likelihood of our North American viewers hearing thunder is dipping as winter approaches. Would you please connect? Please connect. That's okay, we'll wait. There we go, there's your real-time lightning map. Pretty low levels of lightning here at only 69 strikes per minute. It's a lightning shortage. Last but not least, U.S. Doppler radar. Clouds and fog for the lower 48, and water vapor. Moisture and cold air from Canada will be the story. And if you want to get in some early skiing in Montana, there's probably not enough base yet, but it's coming. Here's your recap. And there's that water vapor map. And that is where this video ends. Again, make sure you view our video tomorrow night. Yeah, we're switching the space weather to nighttime. So we'll explain the reasons at a later time. Expect the video to come out at like 6:30 or 7 p.m. tomorrow. See you soon. In the meantime, I'll have been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.